Okay. So even very subtle sessions carry a big punch. Um, and I say yours was subtle because it wasn't like etheric surgery was being done, but there was a lot of other stuff that was done too.
Hmm.
So what I came to find was that there is not really a big correlation between like your the seven primary chakras in terms of like whatever imbalances are happening. Like it wasn't necessarily tied to past life or anything like that.
Hmm.
Um, but what they showed me was that your third eye is very open. So um this could also be like ancestrally, like the family that you decided to incarnate into. Because usually what happens is our own gifts and talents, we choose to incarnate into certain lineages because it helps to bring it in the physical a lot easier. If
Hmm.
there's like a family history of being like really intuitive or really sensitive, or they perceive like dead people kind of a thing. So sometimes we choose those family lineages because it's easier to bring it on.
Hmm.
um with yours right away, I was kind of surprised. I've never quite seen like energy, third eye energy, like how yours was. It was kind of like here, there, and everywhere. Like if you were to drop like food coloring in water and then it just bleeds, like
Hmm.
that's what it was like. I was like, oh, so what actually are you seeing then? Like, what are you perceiving? Because I'm like, it's kind of like here, there, and everywhere.
Hmm.
But what was happening? So went in and balanced everything. I asked about your Earth star. Your Earth star was fine. They didn't tell me to really do anything, but your root was pretty strong. Like that was like a really, really nice like red color. But there's some, like if you think of calcification, like for anything like meat and stuff, it kind of looked like that. There's a little bit of calcification, but otherwise that was nice. Like that, your sacral, solar plexus, that one was easy to get balanced. Heart was pretty interesting, and I'll touch on that next.
Hmm.
Um, throat, that one was easy. Throat, sometimes I'll have me use elements to help balance a chakra.
Hmm.
So they really wanted to use like air instead of water for
Hmm.
whatever reason, because it was kind of like the intermixing of energies between your third eye and your throat. And I was like, yeah, think of it like siloing the energies. Like sometimes I've seen them kind of bleed together depending on the chakra, but usually it's better if it's strong in each one. So that said, your third eye was interesting, and then your crown, that one was fine. So when I asked your highest level guides to come in, guides, angels, higher self to come in, there are these interesting beings that, and I call them beings, not to be confused with anything nefarious, because they are your highest level guides, right? So these beings came in. It was kind of like they came in from behind you, and they were really small. So they kind of look like, I was asking, oh, where are you guys from? Like, what are you? They could be confused in our physical reality with being like gnats, not flies, but like little, like little bugs kind of a thing. Like they kind of, but they're like they is what they are. They have
Hmm.
the whole like butterfly wing effect, but you
Hmm.
can tell that they're a being, but they look like they would be the size of maybe a gnat kind of a thing. So I
Hmm.
was like, oh, what are you guys? And um there weren't swarms of them, but there are a couple, and they're telling me that your connection to Alpha Centauri, so this is galactic, so they are galactic types of beings,
Hmm.
which would automatically make you a starseed. So Alpha Centauri is highly connected to inner Earth, and Alpha Centauri is also where a lot of the elemental beings are.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, our universe is vast, to be honest. So everything you can think of is under the sun is possible here. Alpha Centauri in particular, because that's where they're saying that they come from, is a lot of elementals. So fae, brownies, sprites, elves, those types of creatures. And because they're so connected to inner earth, it's more so if you think of it like the connection to nature is
Hmm.
where you would find them. Highly connected to nature, which is what your entire session was about, was your connection to nature. And what they were showing me is that they wanted to focus on your heart, but I was like, your physical, like your heart chakra was fine, you
Mhm.
know? And they're like, No, it's kind of like on a multi-dimensional layer. Because of your, this is actually readily available to you, is the fact that your third eye is so strong. You can tap into it. You can actually, I wouldn't be surprised if you see things, but you don't realize that you're seeing stuff. Because a lot of times we are very intuitive, but we just don't catch it. We're just, our brain is so trained to dismiss it as something else,
Yeah.
automatic. Like we're just like, oh, no, that was probably a play of the light or something, right? Um, it's because we're so entrenched in that training that our brain doesn't automatically go there.
Mhm.
So what they were saying was that they were working on your heart because it looks like, because you are also actually connected to inner earth too. So
Mhm.
whenever people are connected to inner earth, and there's not a lot of them, to be honest, like less than 5 people I've both done readings for and Reiki sessions for are actually connected to real inner earth.
Mm.
So it's very rare. But what they're saying is that your connection to inner earth does affect you in the physical. So if you have, if, a lot of times this is what happens to empaths. So empaths could have a fine day, nothing wrong.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden they come home pissed off. They're like, why am I pissed off? I have no reason to be pissed off. It's because they absorb the energy around them,
Mhm.
whether it be from another person or stagnant energy or, whatever it might be. I would translate that situation of empaths to inner earth, to whatever is happening with earth. There
Mm.
might be shiftings going on with earth that affect you too.
Mhm.
And you're just like, where did this come from? Like, why do I feel sad? Or why do I feel this? Why do you feel that? There are a lot of things that are happening with this planet, which we can't help but feel because we are also beings on this planet that
Mhm.
also actually affect you because of your high concentrated connection to nature. And that's what these beings were telling me. And I was like, so this is what I was saying. I was very subtle because I was like, that's also the energy of a lot of the nature elemental beings. This is very subtle energy, but it's present.
Mhm.
It's always present, but it's
Mm.
not like packed, jam packed in your face kind of an energy, but it's subtle. So I was just like, so what are you guys doing? Like, just hanging out, like talking, you know.
Mhm.
I was like, what are you guys gonna do? So they actually, what they showed me was they kind of like, as though they were to create like a portal of, so our heart is a portal. That's why
Mhm.
I always tell people, I'm like, if you want to access the records or connect to guides or anything, go into your heart space because our heart's a portal. So they actually opened up the portal, which was your heart, and they showed me, and I was like, okay, cool. Like I see stuff going on, and this is all through your, not third eye, so you might not see it. It's your connection through your, how you feel with
Mm.
earth. And I was like, oh, interesting. I could see how whatever's happening below your feet would be affecting you here.
Mm.
Um, because you live in Fremont, have you always lived in the Bay, or have you always lived in areas where there's water nearby or under?
Not until so I'm originally from SoCal, by
Okay.
Valencia, and then I moved 10 years ago to San Francisco. So it's been
Okay.
like 10, 11 years since I've been in the Bay Area. But Fremont, I've been here for about 5 years, and there's something about the native Ohlone land that I've been just connecting with like every day almost. And there's like a
Yes.
stream of water right by my house. Actually, I go to like almost
Yes.
every day. And
Yes.
I always feel like, oh, there's probably fairies there. Oh, there's probably like
Yes.
elementals hanging out with me. Let me just sit with them or whatever.
Yes. Is because you are exactly, so like what I just said, I was like earlier, I was like, you're psychic. Every single person is psychic, right? I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I'm just
Mhm.
confirming what you already do.
Mm.
So, or I'm just putting words to it, right? So technically you are highly connected to the elemental realm, to nature, to the land that you're at. They also showed me, which is why I asked, have you always lived where there's water? So you've always lived in California, which is a coastline, right? West
Mm.
Coast, because what they're saying is that what water acts as for you, it's an amplifier. So if you think of speakers next to our TV that
Mhm.
amplifies the sound on the TV, what
Mm.
they're showing me with you is whatever is happening below us in earth,
Mhm.
water amplifies that effect so that it also affects you. So
Mm.
what they're showing me was no matter where you live, it, if it's not adjacent to you, then it will be directly underneath you
Mm.
of a water vein.
Mm-hmm.
of maybe some aquifer that you didn't know you lived on top of, but you would be guided to live in places where it's a high concentration of water. So,
Mm-hmm.
so that's one. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head with your connection to land. I mean, that's innate.
Mm-hmm.
So what they were showing me is whatever happens to land going on under you, just kind of keep that in mind. If you feel out of whack or if something happens, you're like, I can't pinpoint where this is coming from or this feeling, then you can tune into, okay, what's happening with the land? This is probably
Mm-hmm.
your connection to the land. Not probably, but if you cannot figure it out, go figure out what's happening with the land because it's an interconnection connection with you. So that's what they're, and I was like, so are you gonna do anything other than just like show me? And then this is what the part that they told me. I was like, oh, you want me to do something? Because I always hold you, they always ask me to hold the client in light. What they also wanted me to do by them kind of opening your heart portal was they also directed me the same light that I have you in.
Mm-hmm.
They also asked me to direct that light to your heart too. And this is source light. I don't mess with anything else other than source. So what happened was it looked like this happened with I think one or two other clients before too. I was like, oh, it's like you lit up like a inside out, kind of light, right? Like think of a lamp. You just like you light up the candle that's in the lamp and then it lights up. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what it looked like. Then you lit up. And I was asking them, I was like, is that all you wanted me to do? And what they're saying is that that will help you connect and anchor. It's kind of like we anchor light both ways. We anchor light through grounding, literally anchoring into this physical plane. And we
Mm-hmm.
also bring in light celestially. So it's a two-way energy. So we always have to remember, like with people, we always think, oh, spirituality is connecting this way. You also connect down this way because we're physical beings, right? So it's a two-way street. And what they were saying, and they actually had me feel this, which was interesting because I usually don't feel I'll always see and hear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they had me feel what, because I asked, I was like, okay, was there any kind of integration period that you're going to be going through with this? And they're like, no. But the biggest thing about the whole session that they wanted to emphasize was your ability to discern better because you're constantly, this is why I was like, your third eye is actually very strong.
Mm-hmm.
Like you say, okay, I'm okay with seeing. If you constantly feel stuff, this was the same for me growing up. I constantly felt stuff like dead people. And I was like, I don't want to see you. I don't want to see you. I don't want to see you.
Yeah.
So if that's the same for you, which I suspect it is, the moment you say, okay, I'm ready to see, you'll just be seeing what you already felt. But
Okay.
that's
Okay.
up to you because your third
Okay.
eye, you don't have to do anything. Your third eye is very strong.
Yeah.
But it's up to you to say, okay, I'm ready to see. What they were emphasizing, it looks like you will be, which is why they kept emphasizing discernment. They're like, he's going to learn discernment through this session right now because there's so much. And the person that I did in this morning, she actually wanted to do what you innately can do. She
Mm-hmm.
was like, I want to open up my psychic abilities, my third eye. And
Mm-hmm.
I told her, I was like, when you say you want to see, you are literally opening the doors to everything, everything. So then it becomes your responsibility to practice discernment because not everything that looks evil truly is evil. Some of the most like crazy looking beings have the biggest heart.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, some of the ones that look like angels are very malicious. They have malintent. So then you have to practice discernment of what you yourself want to interact with.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the same for you because I mean, that's what they're like. It's discernment for him because he's constantly going to be, you're always surrounded by it. So you can start seeing it and perceiving it. And the discernment was very interesting. They kind of gave you like a trick of because you're more of a feeler of
Mm-hmm.
how you can sense it, right? Because it's kind of like the saying goes, like the eyes lie, or like you're what you see might not be the truth, right? So they actually had me feel this, which was interesting. They had me feel if something is good. And what
Mm-hmm.
it felt like it felt like a heart flutter, like, you get really excited. Say if you see somebody like somebody that you're dating and it's like the honeymoon phase and you're like, oh, there they
Mm-hmm.
are. It felt like that. It felt like my heart fluttered. I was like, oh, that's a good feeling. I haven't felt that for a long time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, that's nice. Likewise, if something was not for your highest good, right? I won't say bad, I'll just say not for your highest good. Then they had me feel like, if you eat something bad and you're like, ooh, that
Mm-hmm.
didn't sit well. Like, ooh, like I don't know what's gonna happen with my body, but that didn't feel well.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the two feelings that I felt. It felt heart good, solar, not so much solar plexus because it's your stomach, but it's the same area as solar plexus. That's where I felt it. Like, ooh, good. Ooh, not really so good.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have like a trick up your sleeve of
Yeah.
determining, okay, if I want to start figuring out what's good or bad or not so good, then I'm not going to mess around with that or talk to it. Your connection to the elemental realm is like honestly one of the strongest that I've seen
Mm-hmm.
with clients because, and like I said, inner earth too.
Mm-hmm.
So inner earth is highly elemental.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, when I asked, I was like, because then it became a little bit more Akashic records.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, so then what are you going to be doing then with all this ascension shifting and everything that's happening? And what they were saying is that you will be more of a bridge. So you're bridging up.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, you're actually one of them, was what they showed me. Because
Mm-hmm.
they changed, they had your outline, but they showed me it's almost like a blending of what they are and then what your physical form is. That you were kind of like, I'll take one for the team and I'll incarnate as a human.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they're always connected to you because you are one of them. And
Mm-hmm.
technically, they are not, I don't want to say hive mind in a bad way. They're like a beehive. You know how bees work together, they're very group oriented. That's the same way that these beings work too. They're very group, family oriented. We do everything together. It's like one for all for one kind of a thing. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why they're always with you because it's like, well, he's one of us. Like we're not gonna abandon him. Like he's the one that wanted to become a human. It was almost like, oh, he was the brave one
Mm-hmm.
that said, I'll be human in this go, this. So that's why they're always with you. And if you ever felt growing up or even in your current life right now as an adult, that oftentimes people that are highly connected to the elemental realms and to nature, you feel more of the atrocities of humanity. It's
Mm-hmm.
felt more deeply because you're more sensitive to it. And you're
Mm-hmm.
more sensitive to it because it is against your nature.
Mm-hmm.
It's not commonplace who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you're human in this life, whenever bad things happen, if, growing up, somebody's like, oh, you're being too sensitive, like, whatever. It's like, no, I feel it more than you do.
Yep.
So that is huge. So that's why they're just like, no, he kind of took one for the team and he became a human, right? So you're highly connected to those realms. Your sensitivity and everything is just, I mean, you can't help it. That's where you came from, is
Mm-hmm.
you're more elemental in nature. So um the heart space, and this is the other reason why I tell people, I'm like, your heart is a portal. It is also the best lie detector.
Mm-hmm.
So when you can work with your heart open, you can also, it's not just like, oh, my heart's open and now I accept everything and anything that comes through. When your heart is open, you can also determine, oh, that doesn't resonate here. That doesn't feel good. So then you can just kind of discern that way. So it's also another backup method to discerning what it is that you're going to be tapping into or seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you want to start seeing stuff, they actually did show me your ability to see interdimensionally too. Like that, I didn't have to, I didn't do anything with that. Like
Yeah.
that's what you can do. It's like that's what you incarnated. And like your trick up your sleeve is like, I can also see interdimensionally. So if you think about inner earth is basically on a different radio station than
Yeah.
what is perceptible to us. If you have two radio stations, right? it's the old school radios, the dial, then you watch the needle go like that.
Mm-hmm.
It goes from one station where it's very clear to another station that's very clear. But the in between is imperceptible. You're kind of like, oh, it's static.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually inner dimensions. This
Mm-hmm.
is in between the two dimensions. It doesn't mean that there's nothing hanging out here. It's kind of like the liminal space, the in between.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the upside down from like Stranger Things, where there's like, what is this? Like, there's no action, but there is a lot of action. There's just not like you would be on the two radio stations. So that's actually, they flipped it and they showed me you in your current form. It looked like you're outside somewhere. And then it looked like in the movies how like the lights go out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it wasn't so much that the lights went out, but it was like everything around you went like a green screen, right? Like if you're on a green screen and then it turned purple, like a dark purple, because you're in a different dimension. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, that's neat. Like he can actually go between the radio station. So you
Mm-hmm.
can. So you have the ability, if you perceive anything, you'll feel it. You can also ask to see it. But that's why, trick is like just ask for your highest level guides and angels to help you with that, with
Mm-hmm.
discernment. You can see stuff. This is all, I mean, this is, you're already built in for it, to be honest. Um,
Okay.
so the biggest thing right now, what they wanted to work on was helping you to discern. So what's
Mm-hmm.
going to be happening in the years very, very soon, years to come, is a lot of the mixings of the radio stations are going to start to go like this. So
Yeah.
as they start to go like this, that's where people have to use discernment of like, you know, I want to say like what's real and what's not. That's going to be the question that's coming up for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
COVID was a very 3D way of doing it, of like, what's real? What? The government lied? What?
Mm-hmm.
What's the truth and what's fiction? It's going to be like that the more our radio stations kind of cross over to when galactics start becoming perceptible in the physical.
Mm-hmm.
Also, hand in hand with galactics would be inner earth beings, of which you're like best buds with.
Yeah.
So the inner earth beings, all the nature spirits, will become perceptible in the physical as well.
Okay.
So they're just not surface yet. So a lot of them are like in portals. Like Shasta would be right up your alley. I've never been to Shasta, but like that's a big inner earth portal, where you would actually, the people that can perceive them, because
Mm-hmm.
some of them are actually out, there's not a whole lot,
Mm-hmm.
but you think of Sasquatch, Bigfoot,
Mm-hmm.
that's an interdimensional being. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why it's like I can't catch them on camera, or like they're there and then they're gone. It's
Mm-hmm.
because they're interdimensional. um so those are types of beings, like examples that are in the, what we already know of,
Mm-hmm.
but that you are already connected to. So
Got-
it's more energy that they recognize you as than
Gotcha.
it is, hey, this is my name and this is my job. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's like, no, it's all energy. So they would recognize your energy. So it's really cool. They've never actually showed me in a Reiki session, they've never showed me the client in your current form as
Mm-hmm.
them. It was so cool. It was like they overlaid. It was like an overlay of you in both forms. And I was like, that's so neat.
Yeah, that's so interesting, honestly. And I think a couple things came to mind that kind of changed my perception, especially with the third eye. I always
Mm,
felt like my third eye wasn't that strong because I don't see things, but I
mm,
perceive it through feeling and sensation. So I guess that's another way how I'm strong third eye wise. And then
mhm.
that interdimension, I think it was connecting to all my dream states because I have such vivid dreams and I remember all my dreams and I have like lucid dreams. So I feel like that's could that be like the interdimensional?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
because then and then the whole thing with discernment, I've also been kind of training in my dream state. I get nightmares
Right.
where like it's such a bad nightmare, but then a guide comes in and I instantly become lucid and I'm like, wait, this is a nightmare, and I snap out of it. And I'm like, whoa, that was such a cool training, but it
Yeah.
was intense. So I guess that's kind of what I thought of. And then with the inner earth, I always felt like I was connected to the earth. Does that also have to do with like the grid lines? Like, do I play any
Lee,
role with like
a
activating?
1000%. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Because, and then the interesting too that you brought up was the hive mind. Like, I just got back from a trip to Taiwan, and I
Mm,
observed, I was perceiving such hive mind like societal culture there. And I was like, wow, everyone just follows the rules collectively. And I was like, wow, this is something that the West doesn't really have.
yeah.
Um, and I really connected with it subconsciously for whatever reason, but I guess that's why it makes sense because I was meant to see that so I can remember it almost subconsciously.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Because that's your innate nature is very like group oriented, right? Which is the negative spin of it is hive mind, right? But
Mhm.
no, actually hive mind is not bad. So I've actually seen um like Zeta Reticuli, a lot of those beings there, other than the grays, are hive mind consciousness too. But
Mhm.
what is hive mind and Zeta Reticuli? It is exactly what you see in Japan.
Yep. Hmm.
That's it. It's the same thing. It doesn't
Hmm.
mean it's bad. It's just, and then you translate it to human terms, right?
Hmm.
So it's whatever you make of it, but it's very group oriented. The if you think of the ley lines and grid lines and everything of Earth, they're just energetic highways. So if you feel like you're being drawn to a certain location, it's because there's an energy in that location that's calling you to it.
Hmm.
So you yourself, I wouldn't necessarily say that like what I was, like Reiki, like intentional.
Yeah.
You yourself carry that within you.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like, if you walk around as a light, literally a flashlight, right? No
Hmm.
matter where you go, if it's dimly lit, then you brighten it up. But you didn't have to turn on your flashlight because you're
Hmm.
already lit up. So it's the
Hmm.
same thing with Earth. That's why for some people they specifically say, oh, they need to go there and heal it or clear it. But with you, you don't necessarily have to intentionally do that. Just think
Hmm.
of yourself as my flashlight's already on. Wherever
Hmm.
I go, I impact it because you already have that built into you because you're already connected to it,
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
so that was cool. Like I said, I was like, you're probably one of the highest connected people that I've come across that connected to nature as an elemental. So,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah, that makes so much sense because it's like I've for the past 3 years I've been a driving instructor, so I'm constantly driving around
okay.
Bay Area, like exploring. But now I'm like, oh, I'm like actually, I guess, on another level, activating just the lands
Yeah,
just by driving. And I used to be
yeah,
like I used to be like a I used to also like deliver stuff, so I'm just like driving around. And I've been teaching like a lot of high school students. I'm like, oh, I'm activating star seeds, like young star
yes,
seeds, souls. Um,
exactly.
but then now it's like this session was so perfect because I'm finally quitting this job and I feel like I just need to step into like another role that I'm
Yeah,
being called to. I don't know exactly what, but I think this is kind of the next portal into that. That's kind of what I'm like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It looks like, I mean, it feels like you would still be staying on the West Coast, but it looks like, I don't know, maybe a little bit more inland.
yeah.
Because when you mentioned that, I was like, I don't really see like foresty like I would see it with Northern California, but it looks slightly more desert like.
Hmm.
I don't know, it could even be I've never been to Yellowstone, but it feels like it would be more inland than it is coastal of
Hmm.
what you would be doing. That's just the what they when you mention it, they showed that to me. Um, but your third eye, I would say because it's pretty much like me, which is why I I know that because
Hmm.
I was like, I didn't want to see this stuff. Feeling it was enough. But then I started doing Akashic records and I was like, well, I gotta see it too. And then I got more comfortable. Then it flipped. Then I got more comfortable seeing than feeling. So it doesn't mean my third eye was closed. It just wasn't, it was kind of dormant because I was like, nope, don't want to open that door, keep it shut. But the moment you say, okay, I'm ready to see, it's so easy for you to see, to be honest. It's just you have to be willing to say, okay, I think I'd be willing to see that. Okay. Um, Show me where I need to go. Show me what it looks like. You know, then you can practice like Because like I said, if you were to open your Akashic records and you asked a question, you would have no problem seeing it. Like you, because your third eye is pretty strong. It's just a matter of you saying, okay, I want to see it, show it, show me, constantly telling it, show me.
Yeah,
So that's why I always say, I'm like, okay, well, I hear it, now show it to me. Or I see it, okay, now tell me. And then
gotcha.
sometimes they'll have me feel it. So
Yeah, that definitely resonates because growing up, I always felt like something's there and I get afraid and I'm like, let me just ignore it. Or
yeah.
at nighttime, like when I'm about to go to bed, like, oh, I feel like there's something by the doorway. Let me just like not look at it. And then now I'm coming to a point now where I just see like flashes in the corner and I'm like, or like shadows. I'm like, what was that? When there's like nothing there. And I love how you said when you started your Akashic, that's like when you kind of flipped a switch. And I'm actually doing Debbie Solaris's Akashic in April,
Oh,
so I feel like
awesome.
that's going to be like a perfect switch.
Yes.
I guess based on free will, like you mentioned, it's like my free will. I'm going to want to do it now. I'm going to want to see it because I've been like shutting it down
Yes.
because of fear. So that
Yes.
definitely resonates. Yeah, that definitely. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So you'll be fine, when you start opening your records. You can even do it right now, to be honest.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest thing of why your team was saying discernment, because that was something they trained me for months on,
Hmm.
was eliminating fear. Because everything that I was seeing, I was like, oh my gosh, is that a demon? Because I wasn't into galactic stuff at all. But I would see a lot of stuff and I'm like, what is that? Like, get out, it's a demon. It's very
Hmm.
like religious programming.
Hmm.
Um, but it feels like you would skip that because of the discernment work that your team is trying to help you with. Where you would just be like me, you would start perceiving stuff right away, knowing whatever, just remember, whatever, it's kind of like a catch 22. Like the internet's great, but it's also not great because there's such an abundance of information that
Hmm.
it's kind of too much rather than us trusting, okay, this is how it is accurately perceived. This is what it really is.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we're just like, oh no, they said that thing was bad. So now it's in my subconscious that that thing is bad. So
Hmm.
that's kind of just like a caveat. There was one section of Debbie's class when it came to Zeta Reticuli, I was very upset about because it triggered me. Because she focused mainly on like the gray aliens when it came to Zeta Reticuli. And before I saw that video, I'd done sessions where people were connected to Zeta. And
Hmm.
that was a huge heart opening for me. I was like, oh my God, these beings are so loving, but they're so hive mind. I was kind of disappointed with that second. I don't know if she tweaked it, but that section of the course, it elicited fear of gray aliens and all the depictions in all the movies, right? Ooh, they're bad. They're gonna abduct you, kind of thing. It elicited all of those feelings where I was like, I don't feel like, ugh, it feels like I didn't like that section. So just remember, because you are saying, okay, I'm ready to see, just remember that you're the one that has to tune in to, is this really good or is this really bad? That's why a lot of people, they have this conception about reptilians,
Hmm.
gray aliens. I always tell people, I'm like, look at humans. Humans are just, we do worst things to ourselves,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
So it's the same thing. There's good and bad apples in every single race.
Mhm.
But that's something that you'll come to learn the more you are open to perceiving it.
Gotcha. And then I'm kind of curious when you started to open and like see things, did you experience like headaches or like physical symptoms that, kind of signal that you're opening or that you're switching, flipping the switch? Like, did that happen for you? Or
Not really. I would say when I first started learning the records, immediately you could feel a shift because it's very high vibrational. It's like they don't even tell me what dimension it's in. They're
Mhm.
like, okay. So you might feel the shifting when you're in the records. It's
Mhm.
not a bad shift. It's just for some people that are super sensitive, they might kind of get lightheaded
Yeah.
because it's intense. Um, I have a very high tolerance for pain, so I was just like, I don't know, this is cool. Like, let me.
Mhm.
I would spend like a lot of time in the records. Um, the It's hard to say that anything negative happened to me because what really cracked my egg was my car accident. So
Mm.
that was kind of like I would say it was like the equivalent of like an NDE. It wasn't a true NDE, but it was like what you hear of what people go through with an NDE.
Yeah.
So that's actually what did it. I would not be here talking to you unless I had that accident, because I had no reason to do this, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely. I feel it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I only asked because I tend to get a lot of headaches and migraines, and I just like affirm to myself,
Oh, yeah.
okay, I'm just activating, I'm just opening. But at some level, I'm like, okay, like, is it something else, or maybe it's just that? I don't know. Like to the point where I'm like incapacitated and I can't like do anything. Like it's like at that level. I don't know if it's just the energy coming in or.
It's also energy is what I'm getting. So I would check in, do the physical checks too, like your traditional medical checks,
Mhm,
but it's also energy because, like I was saying, your third eye is so strong. It's almost like, I don't want to say like you're suppressing it, but there's a sense of, if you were to turn on the faucet all the way on, that what Debbie will kind of go over too is like with the records, it's so much information. Once you get to a point, it's like it all comes flooding in.
mhm,
That's like, how do I just focus on like one thing? There's a
mhm,
lot of techniques. One is the radio dial. Don't turn off the radio, but tune it down
mhm,
so that you can perceive just like one thing with clarity,
mhm,
and then go on to the next thing with clarity, rather than it all being rushed to you. That's what I'm getting with energy when you feel that. Um, is it's also energetic too, because it's like a rush of information
mhm,
overload, but because it's almost like you're intentionally blinded.
mm,
It's like if you were to stack stuff on like a tent, like if it rains, like, oh, we all kind of go camping from time to time, and then
mhm,
it pours onto the tent. Unless you like push the water off the tent, it might like dampen it so much then it's going to get heavy, heavy, heavy. But you're
mhm,
not perceiving what's above it. You're just like, I don't know, what is that? Well,
mhm,
it's rainwater that's collecting and pooling. But you have this, it's not even a block, to be honest. It's kind of like, yeah,
yeah.
it's like shielded, where you're just like, that's what it feels like. It feels like a dump of information and energy, but you're not really perceiving it. Because when I look at it, I'm like, oh, it's all white. It's kind of like a camera flash, and I'm just like, I don't really see anything in particular. It just feels heavy. It feels like there's a lot. So if you're okay seeing it, you can start like poking holes in the tent so that it alleviates the pressure,
Mhm,
right? So poking holes, aka saying, okay, all right, I'm okay starting to see stuff,
mhm,
so that I can alleviate the pressure of all this energy that's pooling, and
mhm.
then but I would say that's what it feels more like to me with the energy.
Gotcha.
Um, not, I mean, because I'm not a physician, right? So I'm not talking about anything medical,
Mhm.
but energetic, that's also what it feels like.
Gotcha. Yeah, I
It's like,
also feel that too. It's just like almost like a density of such frequency that I can't perceive it all at once. Like it's just like
yeah,
a huge file or download that I can't like process at the moment. Okay, that makes sense.
yes, yeah. So what they show me with your chakras, every single person is the same way. Think of your chakras as a plumbing pipe.
Hmm.
If the faucet is literally always on, which is money, abundance, energy, it is never turned off. It's always on. That's why when you hear people say, "Oh, you're always abundant. Abundance is all around us." That's the faucet that never turns off.
Hmm.
But our plumbing pipe is our energy centers. If there's a clog, in the heart chakra, for instance, it's gonna start the water can't flow through because it's clogged,
On my throat, it's like,
or your throat
yeah,
clogged,
okay, that makes
right?
sense.
So when you alleviate that pressure, you kind of unclog it, then that energy can flow freely. And the energy wants to go all the way down to the earth, to your earth star chakra. That's why yours was fine. Your earth star chakra was like, they're like, no problems with that.
Yeah.
Some people, theirs is clogged or blocked. So
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
they need to unblock it so that they can anchor into this reality because they're too celestial. So that's just kind of to keep in mind when the energy and the pressures are so dense and heavy. Ask for it to flow. think of yourself as a plumbing pipe. Be like, okay, just flow through whatever it is. I'm not, I guess I'm going to see stuff. I guess something's pooling and collecting up
Mhm.
here.
Mhm.
Just allow it to kind of flow through and then allow it to just come and release out.
Yeah.
And whatever it is that you want to retain from it,
Mhm.
you can ask for your highest level guides and angels to help you with that. Or
Mhm.
you could just start kind of building that discernment yourself.
Mm.
So I'm going to clip a section of what I did this morning because I was just like, I just want to remind people that you don't really need all the protection stuff when
Yeah.
you're anchored and grounded in who you are, because
Mhm.
then you become unfuckwithable,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. That
So that's just kind of another reminder to you. I don't feel like you necessarily need to know that, but it's more so allowing the energy to flow with you
Mhm.
because you're highly protected by your team because you
Mhm.
come from this group mentality type of collective.
Mhm.
So I was like, I don't really see protection being an issue with you. It's more so they want you to learn it yourself, to learn discernment.
Mm. To internalize
They
it versus
can,
external.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. I love that. Yeah.
yeah.
Perfect. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. That was
Yeah,
like I
I
said, I was like,
appreciate
it
that.
wasn't like a heavy hitter, but it was like very subtle. That's how
Yeah,
packed a punch, but not in an obvious way.
no, I love it, and I feel like it hit so many different layers, but when I think of it all at once, it's just kind of just reminding me, hey, like it's time to do it, like let's get it, you know? Like it's time to
Yeah.
step forward and to just own it because I feel like I've known it. It's just a matter of like pushing myself, solar plexus, like just shining that light. So,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, cool. Well, same thing.